Hello, hello, good afternoon. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Friday 5 p.m. demo at the Dive Right In online crop. And I'm just checking out what's happening here. It's taking a minute to load up. And if you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching on replay, you can say replay and leave a comment. And there we go. We finally have our video. So now I can check and make sure we're straight-ish on the screen. Excellent. Alrighty, so we are going to be doing reflections under the moon for today. And we're looking at a stamp set from the current annual catalog, and it's this one right here called Under the Moon, and it's a really cool stamp set. It's got lots of shading done in it already, so it's just a matter of stamping out the images and creating the scene. Like it says up here, it's easy to change the scene. We're going to create a scene in a good way, not just making a scene for the sake of making a scene. And we're also going to be looking at, is this something that I have marked for today? Yes, we're going to be using an interesting tool for what we're going to be doing today, and that's featured on page 127, way up here in the corner. No, it's not the embossing paste, and it's not the palette knife. It is actually the silicone craft sheet that we're going to be using. And so you'll see how that works in just a few minutes. But we're going to be starting out, we're going to be using the Under the Moon stamp set, and this is a photopolymer stamp set, and what that means is that it's clear, which really helps for the technique that we're going to be doing today. And it's got some lovely images. We've got a very large moon here, we've got some water, a sailing boat. This one here, we have the moon kind of peeking through some clouds. There are some clouds as well, and some dolphins, which is a really fun touch. And as I said, these are clear stamps. Now, a couple of them are not in here because they're ready to go for our project that we're working on today. I'm going to start out with a plain piece of white cardstock that has been cut to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And we're going to be creating a card, but you could use this technique in a layout or to create a little mini piece of artwork to go in a pocket page in a mini album, any number of things. You can even create a pretty art piece out of this and frame it and have it in your home, or give it as a gift, or use it as a bookmark, or any other 101 things. That's the great thing about stamps. You can do all sorts of things with it. Hey Diane, nice to see you're watching. Glad you found us. And I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper so we can get started. And the first thing I want to do is introduce you to the silicone craft sheet. And this is just a nice little piece of silicone. It's 6 inches by 6 inches. It's got the little Stampin' Up! Logo embossed in the corner here. So we want to avoid that spot when we're working on our technique today. So this is a demo and a technique rolled into one, because how can you have one without the other? Hey Heather, nice to see you, and Deborah's here too. So this is the silicone craft sheet, and we're going to be creating some reflections. And I have done, and I've even shown you a few methods of doing this. Say you have, and I think this was actually what I used one time to show you. Say you have a stamped image of a bird, and there's only one of them, but you want to make a pair of birds, and you want the birds to be facing each other. And so in the past, I've shown you the technique where you take your stamped image and you ink it up and you stamp it on another block. And then you take that block, sorry, I got a piece of hair hanging on here. What did I say earlier about hair everywhere? You take the image that you just stamped on that block and then stamp it out. And it gives you sort of a fuzzy reflection, but it does work. Sometimes you need to take a pen and just kind of touch it up a little bit and then color it and all that kind of stuff, but it will work. And there's another method too, and I was just trying to remember it. I had it in my brain, to do a reflection where you stamp on the back side of vellum. So you take the same image, you stamp it on the vellum, and then you flip the vellum, and then you stamp on the front side, and you have to use something like StazOn ink or something like that. Then there's also a technique for doing reflections. What else? There was something else I had in my brain just 2 minutes ago. But it's the same sort of thing. You stamp on the back side of a stamp. So if you took a big stamp like this, that's nice and big, and a very flat, large image. So there's not like words or lines or things in it. And then you stamp on that's the back side of that stamp, and then use it to transfer. The only problem I have found with all of those processes, the vellum one, it means you're going to have a piece of vellum, which could work for the design that you're doing, but it might not. With the stamp block, because the stamp block that you're stamping onto is so slippery, you have a tendency to shift and you get a little smudgy. Same with the back side of a stamp. You have a tendency to shift just a little bit. So I was sitting around thinking about what's another way to create a reflection. I've seen people use this stamp, and let me demo it here off to the side. They'll use this little ship, and it would help if I inked it up all the way. And they'll stamp once, and then they'll turn it around and stamp a second time to get that second generation stamp, which there's nothing wrong with that, except for it's not really a reflection. Your sail is now on the wrong side. It gives you the impression of a reflection, but is not truly a reflection, okay? So what I want to show you today is a way to create an actual reflection, and we're going to see how well it works. And we're going to use our Silicone craft mat for this, or craft sheet. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I've got my stamp here that has the little moon, and then it's got some clouds going on. And I'm going to be stamping this with Moody Mauve, just regular ink. And the interesting thing is that we're going to stamp our reflection first. I know that sounds odd, but we're going to stamp our reflection first. And I'm trying to remember inside my brain, and you're going to have to bear with me because I've forgotten the entire step here. I've got a piece of scrap paper. What I want to remember is whether I'm doing first or second generation for this. I'm going to ink up my moon and stamp it. I'm going to stamp it off first, like that. Then I'm going to stamp it onto my silicone mat. And the great thing about the silicone mat is that it doesn't move when you stamp. Not so much anyway. And then I'm going to lay it down here and push. Now this is the process, but I just need to remind myself whether I'm doing first or second. Okay, I'm doing first generation stamping for this. I knew I had to get that process out of my head. Even though I thought about it not 10 minutes ago, I needed to remind myself. Then we need to clean off our silicone craft sheet. Make sure it's all clean and dry. Okay, that's good. I don't need that anymore. I just need this back. Alrighty. So we're going to take, let's scooch that over. We're going to take our little moon here. We're going to ink it up. We're going to stamp it on our silicone craft sheet. And it stamps on there so nicely. It doesn't shift around. Then we're going to come over here. We're going to flip it so that that straight line is at the top. And you can kind of see your paper through the craft sheet. We're going to lay it down where we want it. And we're going to give it a little press. And that's going to help transfer the ink. There we go. Look at that. And now we can wash this off again. We don't want to have any ink on here for our next step. Isn't that cool that we can use the silicone craft sheet for that? I think that is such a fun way of doing this. Okay, now we're going to add our water in here. So I have this, this stamp here, which has got the lovely water on it. I'm going to use Misty Moonlight because I thought that was absolutely thematic for our moonlit little scene that we're creating. Hey Allison, nice to see you're watching. So we're going to ink it up our water stamp using the Misty Moonlight. And instead of doing what I've seen quite a lot, where you just stamp across, I'm actually going to stamp off the edge here. And I'm kind of far from my face, which doesn't help this process. I'm going to stamp off the edge like that, and then I'm going to second generation stamp down a little further. So we're creating this kind of cascading away image with our stamp. Then we're going to come to this other side. We're going to stamp off the edge, and I'm trying to lean as far as I can to see as far as I can. There, first generation. Then we're going to shift a little bit out, second generation. And I kind of like doing it that way because in my mind, if we're making a nighttime scene, the water's going to be dark. And well, even in the daytime, the water's fairly dark, except for where you get the bright light coming from the moon. And so because our moon is shining on the water, we should have a lighter spot in the center, as opposed to having the color in the center. That's my theory anyway. So stamping off the edge. And because we've got those photopolymer stamps, we can line it right up there and get a great horizon line going. Now, we can come back in with our moon again, using our Moody Mauve, ink it up, and then we want to line up our stamps and stamp our original moon in the sky. And it'll be a little darker than the one that we did because this is second generation-ish, coming off the craft mat, or the silicone craft sheet. And then we are going to come in with our little sailboat. So let me scooch. I've got all sorts of inks going on here. We've got our Memento black ink because we're going to make it look silhouetted against the sky. And as a reminder, we're going to do the reflection first. And the reason we're doing the reflection first is this is not as clear as a clear block. And if we stamp first our original, then we try to line up our reflection, it's going to be more difficult, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to ink up our boat. And now I'm trying to remember if this is first or second generation. So let me, pardon me while I check this out. I want to just confirm in my brain whether this is first or second generation. So we're going to ink it up. We're going to stamp it on there. I just have to see how intense. And you'll want to do this every time. Yeah, we're going to do second generation for our boat. So that means we're going to clean this off. That's just a little water in my water spritzer. What we want to do, we have our scrap cardstock here. We're going to ink up. We're going to stamp off. And then we're going to stamp on our silicone mat. Fingers crossed. Then we're going to come in and we're going to hopefully line up with our horizon-ish. Fingers crossed. Stamp it down. Look at that. We made a nice little reflection there. Maybe not as dark. I probably took too long lining it up, but that's okay. We'll stamp our original, and we've got our reflection there. And then we want to do a little bit of inking to kind of fill in our picture. Let me just flip this over to the other side so it looks a little cleaner for a moment. And let's bring back in our Misty Moonlight. We're going to use our blending brush for this. Give it a little tap off here. And we're going to add some extra Misty Moonlight to the edges of our paper. Just adding, you start out gently, and then we can add more ink as we see fit. I'm going to keep it light as I get around to where that lightness is in the water. There we go. And then close that up. We're also going to bring back in the Moody Mauve. I almost stuck my finger in that. I did stick my finger in that. Excellent. I forgot that it was open already. We're going to get some Moody Mauve on there. And we're going to add some to our sky without adding a weird fingerprint, hopefully. So we're going to give our sky some lovely mauve. I love how soft these blending brushes are and how gently they add color. I'm going to add a little extra color around the edges. Like that. Give it a nice glow in the center. And then because our sky is reflecting in the water, I want to also come down here and add a little bit of the mauve in the water. Like that. Because it's reflecting, and so it should reflect. Just a nice little touch of mauve. Okay. How cool was that? Have you ever tried doing reflective stamping? And have you ever thought to use the silicone craft sheet for it? I thought it was kind of cool, and then my brain just went, yes, that sounds like a good idea. So we've created a lovely little design there using our Under the Moon stamp set. Trying not to add weird fingerprints because my fingers got ink on it. We're just bringing in a regular 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of, pardon me, burping, not a piece of, card base. And then I have a piece of the Misty Moonlight 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We're going to add some adhesive to the back of this. Like so. Might even add one extra for good measure. Let's see if I can get the backing off. Yes, I can. Maybe. The first one was quicker. Okay, there we go. Got a little bit hanging over the edge. Now, use my fingertips, put my paper at a 45-degree angle and bring it up to the edge of my paper. Make sure it's centered from top to bottom. And then we're just going to lay it down. Now, I want to add, while this looks lovely, just like that, I want to add an extra layer of pizzazz to my card. And so I want to show you this product that I discovered on the website in specialty paper. And this is Gold Mercury Vellum. So this is vellum that has this lovely, almost like gold embossing all over it. And I think it is just gorgeous. And it comes in a pack of 6 sheets, 3 different designs, 2 of each of them. And I think that when you layer this up with that lovely Gold Mercury Vellum around the outside, doesn't that just elevate the card, kind of take it to a whole new level? And I think it looks so elegant like that. Now, this is a large sheet. If I wanted to conserve some of this vellum, which I might, because it's pretty cool, I could cut a die take a die and cut something out of the center because it's not going to be seen. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just putting it out there. Now I want to add some adhesive. Because this is vellum, I want to keep my adhesive away from the edges that are going to be visible when I put my card front together. So you see how I've put my adhesive in from the edge. It's very important with vellum because adhesive can be seen through vellum. Now this one is pretty good. You don't see a lot, but definitely liquid adhesive would show through. This was cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and that gives us just a tiny bit of that Misty Moonlight showing. But because this is vellum, all the spots where the gold isn't now has that look of Misty Moonlight. But there is still that rim of just the cardstock right around the very edge. Then we can go ahead and add this, and I wanted to use some dimensionals to pop this up, just to make it even more elevated, pardon the pun. And so we're going to add some dimensionals around the edges here, like so. Let's get them all stuck on, and let's stick 2 in the center for good measure. Take all of our backings off. Now that we got them on there, we got to take them all off. There we go. I am fond of hexagons, and so having these little dimensionals in the shape of hexagons kind of makes me happy. Have you ever noticed weird things that make you happy? The packaging on egg cartons, like egg cartons. I don't know what it is about egg cartons, but the shape of them makes me happy. And you know, sometimes you have to find joy in the little things. So if the egg cartons make you happy and the little hexagon dimensionals make you happy, that's a good day. Now, to add a little extra bling, I have some loose frosted dots, and we're going to add these on here. There's yellow and pink and sort of pretty peacock color in there. So I'm going to go for the pink ones because those ones look the closest to the Moody Mauve that we used. And so I'm just going to find 3 of them because we like 3s. So I'm going to stick one up here, just right on our moon, which seems kind of odd, but it's going to work. You're going to see here in a minute. It's going to work. I'm going to do a trio because our brain likes trios, and there's 3 different sizes. So there's the big and the middle, and there is the little. Big, middle, and little. And so now all we're going to need to do is just bring in some liquid glue, and I have found the easiest way to deal with these little kinds of things is just to put your little dab of glue right on your project and then stick it on in, and hopefully the putty will let it go. Let it go, let it go. And let's go in with our large one. Like so. And then the littlest. I like that there's 3 different sizes in there. That also makes me happy. Oh, the putty is so good and sticky. Great for picking them up. But sometimes it makes putting them down a little bit more of a challenge. And there we go. I was having a conundrum today thinking, I need a sentiment. I need a sentiment. I have decided that this does not need a sentiment. We can do our stamping on the inside, put our message on the inside. Oh, Diane says she's never done that reflection before with the silicone craft sheet. So there you go. There is our completed project, Reflections Under the Moon. We used our silicone craft sheet to do first generation-ish stamping for our moon reflection and second generation-ish stamping for our little sailboat, you want to remember to do your reflection first, because then you can see with your matte or with your clear blocks where to put on the second piece. So always start with your biggest reflection first, because then of course I could line my water up with the reflection as well. And I did offset it, and that was on purpose. If you're wondering, that's not in the center. I did that on purpose because sometimes it's a little more interesting to have something just a little off to the side on purpose. And then, of course, we added more weight to this side by having our boat and our extra little blings on this side. So it evens it out, but it does add more interest to do that. So we did our reflective stamping with the silicone craft sheet. Then we added our water and we stamped off the side using the edges of the stamp to create that nice little pathway of moonlight. And then, of course, we did some inking with the blending brushes and even added some of the Moody Mauve down in the water. Adding in our Misty Moonlight cardstock, and of course that lovely Gold Mercury Vellum. How fun is that? A little bit of bling on top, and that is our completed card. I hope you guys loved seeing how to create those reflections, and also how to get a different look at that Under the Moon stamp set. All right, have a wonderful rest of the afternoon, and we will be back on at 7 o'clock for Chat and Craft. We'll see you then. Toodaloo. Bye.